I'm Austin.
I'm Mike.
We are the test drivers.
And we put tech through its paces.
Techtember is almost done, and oh boy, do we have a lot to go over today.
Well, I guess technically it's like Techtober now too, right? Because it's all the same at this point. It's just like the season of tech.
Now, here's the thing, though. If we have 5 minutes of Techtober left... Oh, wait, no. Techtember.
Techtember.
Oh, God. This is really confusing. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but the rate that things are coming out, if we've got 5 seconds of time between when we record this and when the episode goes live, there will definitely be like 7 announcements between that time. Like, it's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, we are in that rough time.
It's good, though. It keeps us busy.
Yes, it's good. Good time. Rough time, good time. I scratched my Z Flip.
Oh, that's not a good time. What? That's it. What?
I have no idea how this happened. I have no idea how this happened at all. I've been using it a lot, and it's picked up some surface scratches, like little ones. I don't know where from, but like I'm kind of fine with that. You know, phones, that happens to phones, glass phones. They pick up little scratches. But I put a link in. You can look at the image. I'll put it in the show notes too. It's like it's not. It looks like it's a crack, but it's not. It's a scratch. And I, for the life of me, cannot fathom what has basically put as like it's a scratch I can feel all the way down the back of the thing, the whole way down.
Can I make an observation?
Yeah.
Was it around a iPhone perchance? Because we have had issues where the screens, I guess whatever the sapphire like sort of little lens over the cameras have scratched pretty much anything in their way because they're harder. Is there a potential that your iPhone got set on top of the Z Flip for a second?
Possibly. Yeah. So like the iPhone attacks the Z Flip or something?
Yeah. Well, that's a thing for most cameras. Are as hard, if not slightly harder, than the actual displays that are, like the glass either on front or back of a phone, but especially the sapphire on the iPhones. We've had this issue a couple of times when we're shooting a phone, and if you so much as let the camera bump touch any part of the glass on another device, it's pretty easy to scratch up, especially considering how long that one is. I can imagine you set your phone down or like it was in your pocket or whatever, and it just slid all the way across and just went.
Maybe that makes, because I've never had something like this happen before. Like to a phone, like I've never had that. Like this is like it's a pretty wild scratch, to be honest. It's like, but the good thing is, it's big.
It has nothing to do with the fact that it's a Z Flip, right? It's on the outside. This could have been any other device, and honestly, it's better that it's on the outside because now, Mike, you can slap a little skin on it, like I do on the back half of my Z Flip, covered up, and you get that little bit of textile sort of texture. Actually, no, not textile. Texture.
Textile texture.
Yes, textile texture.
In the industry.
That's definitely a skin that you can get. But really, I actually think it's probably a good move because that way you don't have to look at the scratch. And for me, like I just love having the sort of the textile texture to be able to actually flip the phone around. Yeah.
One step better for you, my friend. I got an email today, a restock notification of that banana Samsung case with the strap on it.
Oh, are you gonna do it?
I bought one. I bought it. It's on the way. I bought that wild thing. I'm getting it. So I got the blue one with the orange strap. So that's going to be a future thing. I'm actually pretty excited for it because, I like the pop socket on my iPhone. Although I have a pop socket on my new iPhone. We'll talk about the new iPhone in a little bit. And it's not sticking so well. So which is weird. I've heard this from people before. Like I've had listeners contact me and they're like, how do you get the pop socket to stick? Like on previous phones. I'm like, I have no problem with it. But like pop sockets since like the iPhone 11, they don't officially like support you sticking the pop socket directly to the phone anymore because the textured glass doesn't stick so well. But I'd never had an issue. But now it's not holding so well. So I might check out they do the MagSafe ones. Which I'm not into because they're so large. It covers so much of the phone. Yeah. But I might take a look at one of those.
So there's a lot to talk about on the iPhone, but there's a little OnePlus news. I think we're almost sort of obliged to cover at this point.
Yeah, this is pretty good follow up. So with spoken in the past about the merging of Oppo and OnePlus, and CEO Pete Lau has confirmed that the next year flagship will feature a unified operating system with Oppo. So this is a quote from Pete Lau. The approach will result in an operating system that's fast and smooth and clean and lightweight like Oxygen OS, while also being reliable and smart and feature-rich like Color OS.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's a completely accurate statement, and we'll all love it. It'll be great. I'm so excited.
Well, I mean, look, we knew this is coming, right? We knew this was coming.
Yep.
And they've confirmed it. They also actually said as well that there will be no T model of the phones this year. So no more OnePluses, no more flagship OnePluses, I guess, for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's just a move that they're just going to start doing from now on, or because of all the restructuring and whatnot, they had to kind of like take a pause, sort of skip the T model from this year. Yeah. Like, obviously, there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes at OnePlus over the last year. I get that there's sort of some shakeup there. Look, I feel like we've talked about it at length in the past. I don't really want to.
Well, here's another thing I'll ask you, like for this.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe was it the 9, right? 9 Pro?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Do you think maybe it didn't sell well?
That's a good question. I am under the impression that it sold fairly well. I know, though, based on the 9 Pro that we have, they've been fiddling a lot with the actual software. They've been sort of like swapping in and out like Color OS features and Oxygen OS features and stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff that they're kind of like tweaking and changing, and people get mad about, and they switch it back and stuff. So it definitely feels like 2021 is a year of upheaval at OnePlus. Hopefully, they're able to land on their feet. They're able to kind of make not only sort of Oxygen OS better, but Color OS better. My priors here are just that I don't really particularly like Color OS. I think it's sort of, Oxygen OS is way closer to like kind of my ideal Android experience. And the fact that they're changing that and kind of watering it down, like, yes, the longer sort of software updates are better. And I'm sure they'll find some cool features in Color OS and shove it in. But I think we really need to kind of give OnePlus really probably another year before we can fully judge exactly what's going on, because they're clearly making a lot of moves as we speak to kind of restructure the hardware teams, completely sort of restructure the software teams. Like, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, it's just as a reminder, because it's not completely clear. Oxygen OS is what runs currently on OnePlus phones. Color OS is what runs on Oppo phones, both based on Android, just very different builds on top of. And Oxygen OS is considered to be one of the good ones, you know?
Yes. Color OS has traditionally been a little bit more of the sort of the ham-fisted
Samsung-like.
Yeah, old school, like kind of Android skins, whereas Oxygen OS is much more like, oh my God, please don't. Please do not do that. Dude, I feel like I've told the story before, but one of my very first like tech event that I was invited to was the launch of the Samsung Galaxy S3. I will never forget. I was in a room. It was myself. It was like a couple of other tech reviewers. And we all got the phones, and we were all kind of unboxing them and sort of setting them up in a conference room for the first time. And that room was filled with bloop, 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 bloop. That was such a visceral memory of like, oh, this is what it's like to kind of do a tech video and be at the event and stuff. I was like, it's really bloopy in here.
Galaxy S3 is an ugly phone. Like, I don't think that this is... Yes, it's an ugly phone.
Man,
are you being serious right now? Yeah.
It was good for the time. I mean, it was plastic on plastic on plastic.
I don't know. Was it good for the time?
Yeah.
What year was this?
2014? It was a while ago.
Smartphones 2014. I'm just Google image searching now.
Wait, was it... No, now you're making me question myself. Was it 2013?
No, I think it might have been 2013.
Oh, God. That was a long time ago. 2012! Oh, my God. 2012? That was way off.
Whoa. Okay. Austin, come on. We had the iPhone 5 then.
Wait, in 2012? Oh, God. Now you're making me go, wait, was the iPhone 5 out in 2012? No way.
This is what Google's telling me.
Really? Oh, my God.
iPhone 5, Galaxy S3, the Razer Max HD, the HTC One, Lumia 920, and Nexus 4. They were the kind of phones around at the time. Okay. I would say out of those, this is from a website called newatlas.com. I have no idea what this website is. Maybe none of this is at all trustworthy. I'm going to put in the show notes anyway. If these were all out in the same year, the Galaxy S3 was the ugliest of all of those.
Aw, man. I just remember the S3 being such a solid phone. Like the screen was nice. The cameras were really good for the time. Yeah, it was definitely plastic on plastic, but like I definitely daily drove that for most of that, I guess, 2012 year. And man, it was nice. But
design wise, I don't think it was a winner, my friend. I'm sorry to say.
All right, fine. Okay, fine. The rose tinted glasses are coming off. It's a little bit
especially
dated
the
looking.
Lumia. Like those Nokia phones, they were so good looking. Like they were so weird and fun and colorful and stuff.
We should do a like retro throwback episode of like going back through our old phones and kind of going like year by year on like how tech went. I feel like that actually could be like a fun way, maybe like for like our last episode of the year or something of like see how much we can actually remember and go down the good old days before every phone was beautiful and perfect and we had nothing to complain about.
Retro phone episode. And put it in our document. We'll come back to that at some point. I know this is a note that in like 2 months I'm not going to know what that means, but I put it in there anyway. Hey, talking about not knowing what something means.
Oh my God, Mike! Don't do it to me. Don't do it to me.
Let's talk about your custom keyboard.
Okay. All right. So first of all, you were texting me about this. I was like, okay. So. For the most recent episode of Mystery Tech, we got a number of items, but the one that I was certainly the most excited for is a completely custom keyboard made by Betty over at Switch and Click. So I'm not sure. Are you familiar with her channel?
Yeah.
So I've seen it a couple times, but it was just funny because I had just happened to watch one of her videos and she emailed me like the day after. And she's like, hey, I love Mystery Tech. Can I make you a keyboard? I was like, oh my God, yes, please. So she made a very unique keyboard for myself. And look, we've done a lot of keyboard stuff, but it's usually been like off the shelf things. Like Ken's built a couple keyboards, but like neither of us are that deep into like the true Mike Hurley keyboard club world.
Yeah, it's like a little. It's like not in a mad way, but like you're a little like surface level of it.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. Right. So what Betty built was. I mean, it blew my mind, right? So
good. It's a great build. It is genuinely very, very good build.
And her video, I don't know if you saw, was terrific, right?
I saw that one first. A Test Drivers listener sent me the video. I hadn't seen it yet. A Test Drivers listener sent me the video and was like, I hope you're going to talk about this on the Test Drivers. And I was like, yes, we will. I immediately
like
added it to our document.
So the build was in the most solid sort of chassis I've ever touched in my life. It is the KBD 8X Mark II.
Yeah, it's from KBD Fans is the company that makes it. Yeah.
So are you familiar with this particular chassis?
Yeah, I don't have a KBD 8X, but I'm very familiar with it.
It weighs 700 pounds.
It doesn't weigh 700 pounds.
It weighs 700 pounds.
Wow.
You need a team of men to lift it up. It is massively solid. Like the best way I could describe it is it feels like it's like a solid like block of granite that like a keyboard was like hewn out of. Like it is incredible.
It's aluminium body with a brass weight in it, right?
I honestly don't know. Certainly there's brass on the bottom.
Yeah, aluminium top and bottom case with a brass weight. And you probably got a brass plate in there as well. So they can be heavy. Like I have a keyboard which is kind of like this in a way. I have an all aluminium with a brass plate and weight, and it's a TKL, so a tankulus keyboard, which means it's got like very similar in like when you look at it from top down from the layout. It's a Rama keyboard is my one.
Man, this thing has changed my life. In fact, actually, so traditionally, not only at home but also at the office, I've lived the laptop life, right? So I've had like sort of one of the small standing desks that's just wide enough for like a keyboard or in this case like a MacBook or something, and I plug into like an external display. But essentially, I've always just had the width of like either up to like maybe like a 16-inch MacBook or so, and I have a mouse on the side. But I've always used like the MacBook keyboard and trackpad along with the mouse and the external display. This keyboard has changed my life to the fact where I'm about to rip up all of my setups, both at home and at work, or I guess technically one of the two, because I need to figure out where the keyboard actually eventually lives. But it's so good. But Mike, the reason you were making fun of me is because there is a thing that was done to this keyboard called Cerakote. Cerakoted keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
which I have now since learned is a ceramic coat. It was painted. It was sort of got the splatter design.
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard of this before. It looks and feels fantastic. But is this a common thing? Am I just completely missing out that I didn't know what Cerakoting is?
I don't know
That
if
sounds
you,
like a yes.
so like it's common in a way. So I first found out about Cerakoting because some friends of mine, Tom and Dan, they run a company called Studio Neat, and they made a pen called the Mark One, which is Cerakoted. This is how I first found out about Cerakoting. But Cerakote is very commonly used in gun customizing.
Oh.
So, like, if you Google Cerakote, which is Cerakote, because that's a brand, by the way, Cerakote is a brand.
Interesting.
If you Google Cerakoting, you find just tons of pictures of wild looking guns.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do it in a bunch of stuff. Keyboards is very common. You can buy keyboards that have a Cerakote on them. It's just like a version, like you maybe want to anodize it, maybe you want to electrolysis color it, or you can Cerakote it. It changes the way it feels because Cerakote has a different kind of feel to it. It doesn't really feel like metal so much anymore. It's kind of like a soft touch in a way. Or what, like a lot of people do, like how you can own a gun, say, and you send it off and get it Cerakoted. You can do that with a keyboard. You send it to a Cerakote shop and they'll coat it, and that's what Betty did for yours.
It is incredible. When I just touched it, I just assumed it was like some great paint job or something. I had no idea, but it's so good, man. It's so good. Like, I will never be on your level when it comes to keyboards. Like, I fully admit that. You are the master.
This is basically on my level. You use Boba U4T tactile switches, which is what I have in my favorite keyboards.
Oh, really?
Like, what you have, the board you have right now, is very similar to some of the best ones that I use every day. Like, you have a very solid setup built by someone who really knows what they're doing.
Yes, that's the key part. You build your keyboards. Betty built mine. And so I can appreciate it, but only to a level because it's so much of this like super, super technical stuff goes way over my head. Like, I appreciate it. I know that it feels absolutely life-changing to type on this just chunk. I was about to say chungus, but I know you don't like me when I say that. This chunktastic keyboard.
I don't think I like
incredible.
chunktastic much more, to be honest. But like, we get, whatever you want, really. It's very solid, beefy. I'm not going to let the Cerakote thing go for a minute, though, because there was a moment that, like, I died. So you and Ken mainly were trying to work out what it was. You were reading it and you were calling it Cerakote, right? And you couldn't work it out. So then you and Ken were investigating it and you worked out it's ceramic coating. Yeah. But you still called it Cerakote, which was hilarious to me. Like, it's ceramic coating, right? But it, like, I understand this. It's a weird word, right? But it just was very funny to me that it's like you like Cerakote. What is this? Ceramic coating. Okay, it's Cerakote.
Oh, look. All I know is that my fingers have been blessed with the power of an amazing keyboard that looks and feels great. The details aren't important.
I just noticed something in our show document here. So we have a shared Google Doc.
No, you didn't.
It currently says Cerakote with a C, but when I opened the doc this morning, it said Cerakote with a K, and I thought you were joking with yourself, but you changed it because you wrote it wrong again, didn't you?
I literally, about 3 minutes ago as we were recording, I secretly misspelled the name. I changed it from the K to a C, hoping you wouldn't notice. Damn it, Mike.
I thought that you were like, you'd written it in there as like an in-joke for yourself. You were still calling it Cerakote. I think that needs to be the name of your keyboard. You just need to call it Cerakote. So you also have some pretty nice keycaps on there as well, too. I think you have some GMK white on black and black and white mixture, which is pretty cool that Betty did that for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a big fan of yellow in my life. And of course, if you guys are listening and you have not seen this keyboard, we'll have, I'll take a photo for the show notes. So we also have it in...
I'll also put links to both the videos as well. So people should go and watch Betty's video because it's very funny. They do like a mystery tech in the middle, which is very good.
So good.
It's a great video. Good. It's very fun.
But man, it is life-changing. I really just need to sort out how this fits in my standing desk setup. Really, that's the big thing because like, because I still like using laptops, right? But unfortunately, the way my sort of desk is set up, there's no space for a laptop and a keyboard and a mouse. So I may need to, honestly, I might actually need to switch over to like a docked laptop setup and just give up the trackpad and the keyboard altogether. but I love having the trackpad when I edit. So I got to kind of work out exactly how I'm going to do this. But man, this thing is incredible.
It really, so like, I'll say, like, it's kind of what I like about it, right? And I've been diving into this. You use your keyboard so much. Like, I hear people say this, like a lot of people that are really into the hobby, like streamers and stuff. If you are a person who sits at a computer all day, and honestly, so many of us, right? Massive amounts of the population, whether for fun or for work, your keyboard is one of the things that you will use the most. And for some people, like you use it more than a mouse or a trackpad or whatever. Yeah. Why not have something that is just a joy to use? Like, I think most people don't think about their keyboard because their keyboard is just like, whatever, it's like, whatever. It's either fine or it's a problem. But these ones, when you choose all the pieces, or you have all the pieces like specifically chosen for you, and it's put together with care and like really well, like, man, it's just, I find it just a joy, like an absolute joy. And so you are now you really have something good, right? So like, I know that you've been used to mechanical keyboards, but the mechanical keyboards that you've been used to, they're like pre-made, right? And so like you can judge those, and there is a level at which some are pretty decent, but this is like artisan.
Next level.
Yeah, you are in that like really good level now, because like the KBD-AX is like a $300-$400 keyboard.
Oh my god!
But for good reason, because it's made really well. Like, I know a lot of people really like that keyboard. The layout's great, color's great, yellow with the black speckles. You got a special, and I think it's awesome. I'm really pleased that that was done for you. It's awesome.
Mike, you've been working on this for a long time, and I feel like you just slowly twist my arm between like the pens, between the keyboards. I feel like stuff like mechanical watches, like all of this kind of stuff that feels so like sort of tactile. It's part of the reason why I like old Porsches and stuff. Like, there's something about like in the digital world we live in, that real physical, like the touch and the feel and stuff. It's like, to me, it's like it's always there. But then I buy more Pokemon cards and don't spend money on these things. But it's always there. And now that I've used this, man.
You say you're just this is just Pokemon cards for you,
It can't be. It can't be. I definitely don't have space in my life for anything else like that. Not that anyone else who's listening is watching and would judge me for that or listening. But yes, my keyboard is fantastic, and I now live a better life. And I will certainly not go any deeper, because that would just be a questionable decision.
We'll see. This episode is brought to you by Pingdom from SolarWinds. Today's internet users expect a fast web experience because, look, it doesn't matter how targeted your marketing or how sleek your website feels to use. If somebody comes to your page and it's not loading or loading too slowly, they're going to leave. But with real user monitoring from Pingdom, you can discover how website performance is affecting the experience of your visitors, so you're able to take action before your business is impacted, all for as low as $10 a month. Whether your visitors are dispersed around the world or are using different browsers, different devices, different operating systems, it doesn't matter, because Pingdom's going to help you identify those bottlenecks, troubleshoot the performance, and make informed optimizations. Real user monitoring is an event-based solution. It's built for scalability, which means you can monitor millions of page views, not just sample data, at an affordable price. So, get live site performance visibility today with real user monitoring from Pingdom. Go to pingdom.com/relayfm and get a 30-day free trial with no credit card required. Then, when you're ready to buy, use the code TESTDRIVERS at checkout, and you will get an awesome 30% off your first invoice. That's pingdom.com/relayfm and the code TESTDRIVERS at checkout to get an awesome 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom from SolarWinds for their support of this show and Relay FM. Got my iPhone
Same.
Pro Max. Do you have you have a selection of iPhones, right?
Yes. So I think it was like a day or two after we recorded the episode last time. I did get, thankfully, the review units of all 4 iPhones. So I've been able to play with all of them, get a good sense of them. And I think we have a little disagreement here.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're still living on the Pro Max.
Easy. There was no decision. Like, it was just, I just rebought what I had last time. The gold Pro Max.
Okay.
It's the only choice.
Here's the thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As an iPhone 12 mini user, I really liked that phone. I really liked that phone. But as we discussed last time, the 13 Pro had my name all over it, right? the better camera, the fact that it's got the ProMotion 120 hertz, the better battery life, the better GPU, all this kind of stuff, right? To me, the ProRes and everything, iPhone 13 Pro was an easy cop. Instantly ordered it, the whole deal, right? Got into the blue, everything. So it's big and it's heavy, and I miss my mini. That's it. That's my review. I have some regrets at the moment with this phone, which is very nice and very excellent in every way, but it's not my little mini, and I miss it. I really actually legitimately miss it.
Well, what made you choose? Is you choose for the camera and the ProMotion? Is that why you would choose the Pro over the Mini?
Yes. So like now that I've spent some time with the Pro, which I think at this point probably has been a week or two, so the screen is nice. I'll say the screen, like the ProMotion, it's kind of weird. Like I don't actually think it's a massive difference over the last years.
This is wild to me in talking to people.
Really?
Because for me, it is a huge difference. And I know I have some friends who find it a huge difference. Some people I know have just turned it off, like they don't like the way it looks. And then some people, like you, are just kind of like, I don't really see it. I don't know what it is like that makes people react to this differently. But for me, like this feels like the reason for me to own this phone.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I love it. I think it looks fantastic.
So, okay, here. So then my big question to you, how do you feel about the 120 hertz on the iPhone compared to the Z Flip? Because I guess just to put my cards on the table, the Z Flip felt like a more substantial upgrade. And I find that usually to be the case with Android devices. It's not like I have hard numbers on this, but the sort of impression I get is that Android does have a little bit more variability when it comes to like the animation speed and the actual like sort of fluidity. Whereas the iPhone has always stayed pretty damn locked to like 60 hertz. Like it always feels very smooth. Whereas I feel like on Android, sometimes you get a little bit of like jittering, a little bit of hitching with like certain animations. And it might even be like a frame or two, but it's something that I notice that kind of goes away at 120 hertz. Whereas on the iPhone, it was already very smooth. Now it's so slightly more so.
The jump isn't the same because it was already smooth before. Right.
Yes,
I get
exactly.
you. I mean, the thing is, the places where I'm seeing it is a lot of like system animations. I feel like I see it and scrolling stuff. And that's what this is what I'm doing most of the time on my phone. And I feel like it makes a big difference. Like I feel like I can really see it. But I can imagine maybe if you're more used to it, it maybe, as you said, doesn't feel so much of it. Like if you're more used to it on other devices, maybe it doesn't feel so much. I really feel like this is a pretty personal thing. Like whether you feel like you see it, whether your brain is and how your brain reacts to it. Because I have friends who are like, this makes me feel motion sick.
That's crazy to me. That's, I mean,
it's a thing. Like I know that people have like they look at it and it's like the motion is strange. It's kind of like 60 frames per second video. Like if you watch a YouTube video in 60 frames per second, some people find that like uncomfortable to look at.
So for me, look, I certainly can see the difference. It certainly is nice. Like it's not like I wish I want to turn it off or anything. But also, if all things were equal, it does not wash out the fact that this phone is too big and too heavy. Mike, you gotta admit at least this. The Pro and the Pro Max are chonky.
Oh god. Yeah. Okay. What I'll say is I picked it up and I could immediately tell the difference in
heavy.
Weight. Yeah.
Yeah. And like now that they're heavy, they're slippery too. Like the other day, it slid out of my pocket and like landed like a thud on the ground. It like I don't know, man.
Sure. I mean, what do you go to the gym for, right? Isn't this why? Isn't this what all that's for? So you can pick up your phone.
I'm just working my forearm strength.
Yeah. It's the real, these are the things you have to do as a tech reviewer. That's why all the tech tubers have muscles, because their iPhones are so heavy.
You know what it makes me appreciate, though, is how small, thin, and light the Z Flip feels, especially when you have them side by side. The Z Flip, it just feels like I'm going home. Like it's the right sort of weight. It's the right sort of like thinness.
It's not much thinner, Like I'm putting mine side by side. I think they're about as thick as each other.
Yeah, but the weight, like, so I've
Yeah,
got
there is a
my
weight difference. It's not huge, but there is a weight difference. I also think though that the Z Flip has a. So we're gonna talk about the iPad Mini in a bit too. I think the Z Flip has a similar thing to the iPad Mini, where it's just the weight is dispersed differently.
Mhm.
So there's always a thing with weight and like relative weight. Like the iPhone feels very dense. It's always felt very dense. Like you
Yeah.
pick it up and like it doesn't really feel. It feels like the entire thing is like a consistent weight throughout. But the iPad Mini, I feel like I can more comfortably hold with like a couple of fingers on the corner or whatever, even though it's physically bigger and weighs nearly the same. But it's just the way that the weight is dispersed just makes it more comfortable to hold. I don't know what it is that does that. I'm sure somebody smarter than me could tell me, but I know it just feels different.
Yeah, well, I think there's pretty big differences between the devices this year because the weight between, say, like the regular 13 and the 13 Pro is significant. I think it's 174 grams versus 204 grams on the 13 Pro. Part of that's battery and extra camera stuff. I think a lot of it though is the
It's
fact,
the stainless steel.
yes, the stainless steel. I think aluminum's a better move. I don't actually think that extra weight does anything besides make the phone feel a little bit more uncomfortable.
I mean, I like the shininess though. Like I do like the shininess.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like to me, I like when I just like literally just the feel of the Z Flip, which is aluminum, and the iPhone, which is stainless steel. I just pick it up. The Z Flip, I just like that kind of texture. Like to me, I like something that's a little bit more matte. I like something that's sort of lighter, and especially when you look at like so having spent time with the Mini and the regular 13. Both of those phones feel just better in the hand to me. I know obviously that I'm putting way more emphasis on this than most people do who put some giant case on it and never even think about it.
You had been
But
on a small phone vision quest
I had,
before
and I've
this.
seen the future, but now it's being taken away because apparently there's not going to be a 14 mini. And like, I know that like I got to get off the train at some point, and I'm still using the 13 Pro to be clear. I have not, traded it in or returned it yet. I'm still a little bit on the fence because there are nice advantages. Like, oh my, the battery, Mike, the battery.
So good, right?
What? It is ridiculous. Like look again, having come from the 12 mini and the Z Flip, both of which are barely okay as far as battery life. The 13 Pro feels like I charge it a little bit in the car, like via CarPlay, and that's enough to keep me at 100% all day long. Like it is crazy town. Like I can't wait to have like a full like I've got some travel coming up. I want to really put this thing through its paces on a couple of travel days, but I would not be surprised if I can make it through a full day of travel and not even come close to tapping out this battery.
I've done 6-hour screen on time with 40% battery left.
And the Pro Max, to be fair, the Pro Max is better. I don't know if you saw
the Pro
everything
Max
Apple
didn't need anything. It was fine before. Like it didn't, in my opinion, like it wasn't in need of more battery life, but they gave it another 2.5 hours. Like it's like this is like this was a couple of days after I got it. The next day after I got it, 6 hours screen on, 3 hours screen off usage. So like 9 hours of usage, and it got to 60% used through the day. So 40% battery life left at the end of the day.
Look, I'm never going to complain about too much battery life. And I'm not going to say that, oh, it's so heavy because they filled it with battery, even though I'm sure that's part of it. But like, there is no way you can complain about any of the iPhones this year, even the Mini, right? So if I would have known beforehand that the Mini had terrific battery life that was still well above what I needed, and the Pro and all the other devices were just super, super extra, that also would have nudged me that way. And the cameras, right? So, okay, I appreciate the improved cameras on the Pro, right? They are really better across the board. The main shooter, a little bit better, not like a huge difference, but it's a little bit better. The ultra wide is noticeable. Of course, the telephoto.
Love the macro.
Yeah.
I love the macro mode, man.
I think it's nice. I do agree with most everyone who's complaining on Twitter that I want to switch because it does definitely
they're gonna add it. They're adding it. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
They're adding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because I've had things where I'm trying to take a picture and it's in the macro. I'm like, I don't want you right now. Like I'm just trying to take a regular photo, but because the macro mode is something that I've wanted. Like it is a mode that I've wanted from my iPhone for a while, and had kind of never really mentioned it before because I just didn't assume that they would do it, because the way that macro modes tend to seem to work is like companies put a macro lens, like a crap macro lens, on the phone.
Yeah.
But it turns out that like I'd never really thought of this. Maybe I just don't know enough about how this stuff works. You put an autofocus enabled ultra wide and crop it
Hmm.
in the right way, and you can get a macro effect. Super smart.
Yeah. And to be fair, I do think OnePlus was the first company that I saw that did the same approach where they didn't
Right.
add the macro, but they actually had, like the sensor and specifically, I think it's the lens that they use. They, I guess, can just kind of. I don't fully understand the optics, but I guess if it just pulls all the way to minimum focus on such a wide lens, you can just focus really closely. Regardless, it's certainly a cool effect. And look, I like these cameras, but they're not that much better than the mini, which is so much smaller. Mike, I can't make a decision. I like legitimately, I've like hovered over the return button on my iPhone several times, but then I'm just like, the ProRes is coming. That's gonna be outside my return window. But I like the mini. I don't know. I'm like legitimately torn because like the 13 Pro in a vacuum is a terrific device. I have nothing to complain about except the fact that I know that the mini exists. And in most ways, it is just as good, or at least it's worth the trade-off. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to end up.
Well, what you do know though is you only got 1 year of it, so.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Of like, do I just want to like ride the mini out into the sunset, into the very last second in which we have to say bon voyage? I don't know. I kind of want to. I kind of
Who
want to be
knows?
like, look,
Maybe they surprise us, right? And like, turns out the rumors were wrong, and there is going to be a mini next year. You never know.
I just should probably. Oh, you know what? Here, how about this? What if I just buy all the minis and they have to make another one? How about that? We just start like a GoFundMe to save the mini, save the whale, save the mini. No, maybe. No,
I feel like even if you did do it, which wouldn't really make any sense, but even if you did do that, if they've made the decision, it's too late, right?
Yeah, I
These
guess I should
things
just stop.
multiple years in advance.
I know. I just like the mini, man. I just was not expecting, like, especially based on the announcement that we kind of talked about last episode. The mini looked like a pretty, like, okay upgrade. It wasn't huge, but looking at the battery life, looking at how much better the cameras are, and just how heavy this 13 Pro is, to me, it went from an easy decision to a very difficult one.
It's like, look, it's worth thinking about, right? That like the phone that occupies the mini space might be taken up by an SE next year, right?
Yeah.
And
fair.
but the thing is, for you, that's not going to be what you want, because what you want is modern specs in a small phone, and that's not what the SE would be, right? It might be modern when they introduce it, but then it's going to stick around for a few years, and that's not going to be what you want. So,
yeah, it feels like it's one of those things where obsolescence is coming, and I just need to just get my head around the fact that if it's not this year, it's going to be next year. I'm going to have to carry around a big chunkus of a phone, and I just have to make my peace with that. But man, I don't know. It's weird because like if I can just for 1 second, I can just forget about how big and heavy the phone is. It is terrific, bordering on. I don't want to say perfect, but like there's very little to complain about. The performance, the screen,
I
the cameras.
really liked the beginning of your video. Like, and I know that like I know how it works. Like they are meant to be like enticing, right? And and that's a really interesting line. Like I have nothing to complain about.
Yeah,
but I know that was the thread of the whole video, and I think I feel that way too. Like I have no issues with this phone. I have no wants from it.
It does so much so well. I would like USB-C. I will say one thing that, especially since shooting that video. So when we shot that video, we shot it entirely on the iPhone 13 Pro Max.
I could tell that really soon, by the way, which is funny. The interior, there wasn't enough, like it couldn't handle the low light of the interior. Outside, it looked fantastic, but I mean, like, so I say it looks great inside, but not like Austin Evans level, right? Like it's not like a typical YouTube video would be for you. Outside, I think I wouldn't have been able to tell, but inside I could tell.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So we primarily use the main wide angle as well as the telephoto. The telephoto is sort of like that 77 mil. Like that's actually a good sort of focal length for a lot of what we shoot anyway. And Ken really likes leaning on that. But unfortunately, you need a ton of light, and even then, you don't get the same sharpness. So there's a pretty dramatic difference in the quality between the two. But that was one of the things I really appreciated after shooting that video, which we shot just in the regular H.265, we don't have access to ProRes yet. It is so slow to dump this footage over USB 2. Oh my God, dude. ProRes is going to be brutal. Like, it is going to be so slow. Because, like, we had not even that much footage on the iPhone. Like, I would say, I mean, for us, it was probably an hour, a little over an hour of footage. And I swear it took, like, almost 30 minutes to dump. Like, it was very slow.
Like, I mean, I don't, would AirDrop do it faster?
So AirDrop actually is slightly faster. Unfortunately, I don't generally trust it. Most of the time, if you're AirDropping from a modern Mac, or I guess from an iPhone to a modern Mac, it just transfers the footage. But I've had issues where sometimes it decides to transcode the footage for whatever reason it decides. Because I know there's some kind of handoff.
Compatibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it trips in weird ways sometimes. Like, I've definitely had issues where I AirDrop, like, why is this 1080p? Or why is this suddenly H.264? And there's no real reason for it. So we always just use, just a USB, like a C to Lightning cable, using image capture on the Mac to make sure we get the full quality.
Photos app? Like, if it uploads to Photos and then you could just grab it from Photos?
I only pay for a little bit of iCloud,
Austin,
so I don't have
what do you fit? What? Come on.
I have 50 gigs. I have 50 gigs.
How much?
But then I have 50 gigs. So it's not like
Austin,
the base plan.
What? Do you back up your phone?
Yeah. But I mean, I don't.
Austin Evans, do you back up your phone to iCloud?
Yes. I back up my phone. Yes.
Where do your photos back up to?
Google Photos. That's where all my photos and videos
Austin
live.
Evans, really?
Yeah.
So how often are you opening up the app to sync the photos?
I turn that off.
So how do they back up?
Google Photos. So I open Google Photos. That is my photo app, right? So, like, I don't ever open the photo app.
So you open it regularly enough that they're going up there?
Yeah. And also just anytime I'm on Wi-Fi. Yeah.
I love finding these things out about you. It's so much fun for me. Oh,
Yeah.
but if you just got, like, the iCloud Plus thing, whatever it's called, you just get a bunch of space and you could...
Okay, but think about it for a second, right? So I would have to be logged in on iCloud on, like, the server with all my photos and videos that everyone has to, like, access to. And then, like, I got to wait for it to upload and I got to wait for it to download. Like, it's so much easier to treat the iPhone like a regular camera, which is just you plug it in and you dump the footage like everything else. It's just USB 2 is slow. So I will say, after making my video, I really appreciated the lack of I don't even care if it's Lightning, whatever. I just want USB 3.0 speeds in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, USB-C would be ideal. That would be probably the one thing I could complain about.
I'd love to see Thunderbolt on the Pro phone.
I would take anything that's slightly faster. Like, that ProRes is going to be just, like, absolutely just awful to dump. Like, you're going to just be sitting there for, like, an hour to dump footage. But everything being said, the iPhones are still great this year. I still love them. Shooting, this was actually the first video we've shot fully on iPhone in a while. And, like, the experience was completely fine. Like, it was legitimately great. The only problem we really had was that we actually had an audio issue, but that was due to the fact that we were using these Rode Labs that were plugged in via Lightning, which worked, but we just had a little bit of, like, interference issues. So I actually had to reshoot part of that video. But yeah, I edited the whole thing. I cut the whole thing. It was good, but I'm just weird and I like the mini phone and I want to go back. That's the gist of it.
Move on, but there was something I wanted to ask you about the iPhone with videos. I think I saw you on Twitter say that the hype's way lower this year, and I just thought that was interesting.
Yes. Okay, so just to kind of peel the curtain back on YouTube, we made 2 iPhone videos. So we made a video the day of the announcement, and we made a video the day that it went on sale, right? So sort of, like the announcement video and, like, the hands-on video, essentially. The announcement video traditionally does pretty well, right? Like, like you talk about it and everyone's hyped to find out. That video not only performed the worst of any iPhone sort of launch video that we've ever done. It was like, it was a 10 of 10 in sort of in our YouTube backend. Like, it was a poor performer. The hands-on review, it was like a 20 of 10. That doesn't even exist. There's no hype for these things, right? Like, both of our iPhone videos combined did less than an average single iPhone video that we would have done a year or 2 ago.
I don't understand it. I don't, you know why? I see this stuff. It happens in online communities. Like, an idea spreads. And like, the idea is that these phones are bad. And I don't really know where that idea came from. Or, like, why it would be different to any other iPhone. Is it just because it doesn't look any different? But Apple changed the design of the phones, like, once in a blue moon. Like, it's not often. So I don't really
So,
understand what's going on.
yeah, the way I understand it, a lot of iPhone 13 rumor videos have been posted this year. Like there are, I would say,
Right. Okay.
dozens of videos
Okay.
that are on the iPhone 13 already before launch that have over 1 million views. Right?
Too many. Too based on everyone thinks it's boring because they already know everything.
Yes. And on top of that, Apple sampled a lot of people this year, right? I would say, I would never say too many people because obviously the more people who get their hands on it, the better. But when there are, 50, 60 videos going live in the first week, there's certainly a level of saturation there where people, generally speaking, want to watch one, maybe two videos. And they're probably going to watch it from one of their favorite creators. And that's kind of it. And I think that there was certainly a level of like, especially because everyone kind of had the same opinions, right? Like everyone's like, oh, this is a great iPhone. It's great. It's great. It's great. And you hear that once, and you're like, okay, cool, I get it, right? So it's not hard for people to understand. It's
Right.
not like you need to watch a bunch of unboxings and get a bunch of like sort of diverse opinions. Everyone just kind of agrees that it is a very solid device. And therefore, you're not going to watch 60 videos in your sub box. So I think there are a few things going against it. But it is bizarre, man, because like I remember not that long ago, you would be camped out, in line for the iPhone. You grab it, you'd rush back to the studio, shoot the unboxing as fast as you can. You put it up, and it's just mega views, right? Everyone was hungry for that content, and it's just not like that anymore, right? It kind of feels like the OnePlus situation, where OnePlus, similar to Apple now, sample a lot of devices to a lot of YouTubers. Everyone posts a ton of videos on it, and people, generally speaking, sort of they get it, right? They watch one, it's over. It's not like the way it used to, which is so weird, man. It's
Better
a different
for Apple,
time.
right? I think, but harder for some creators.
Well, I mean, of course. Isn't it great when you bring out a new product and there are, millions and millions of people who watch videos about it? Yeah, of course, that's great. But yeah, as a creator, it's like it used to be a no-brainer to make 2, 3 iPhone videos like without question. I think our plans for next year are going to be more scaled back. Like we may make like a single iPhone video because it's just so many people are out there.
It depends. How can you judge hype, right? Because the current iPhone 14 rumors, I can't believe it, are saying it's going to have a new design. And that really does change things for people because the new design is something that's hard to leak. Like to actually get the design right is very difficult. But the features can be leaked more easily.
We'll see. We'll see. I guess just to me, it seems like the winds are changing on how people consume iPhone content.
Super interesting to me just to see the general like feeling of like, oh, this is a boring phone, like rubbish, like oh nothing. Like it was just interesting. Like I've been around. Oh God, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I've been around for a really long time, and I've seen a lot of iPhones. Right. I've had them all, and I've been covering this stuff for like 10 years. And this is an interesting, like the rhetoric around this phone is interesting because it is as good as any, in my opinion, year-over-year iPhone. So, but it seems like people have already written it off as being a bad one, and it's just a surprise to me. We have a bunch of other stuff we want to talk about today. Like we've got some really cool Surface products to talk about. So I'm just going to very quick just say I love my iPad mini so much. It's super small, super light, amazing to hold in one hand. The home screen looks kind of weird. Touch ID is odd to get used to after using Face ID for so long. This really feels like a portrait-oriented device. Like it is physically shaped that way, right? Like they actually made it kind of like if you hold it in portrait, it's thinner. So you put it in, so you put it in landscape, and it's like it's smaller, right? They changed the orientation a little bit, and I think that it makes the most sense. Like if you put this thing in landscape, the software keyboard basically takes up the entire screen, but in portrait, it's easy to thumb type, and that's really reading feels like the perfect thing for this. And for watching video, it's fine, right? Because they didn't shrink it; they just made it they changed the physical dimensions of it a bit. It looks fantastic overall. This is like an absolute winning form factor for me. Like, I don't feel like you're really losing much from coming from an iPad Air. Yes, the screen's smaller, but it's easier to hold. So if you're going to be reading on it, it's more comfortable and it's bigger than a phone. You get iPad OS, which is good. Like even like this is the thing of like, a lot of people say, like, why would you do that? Why would you not just, if you have a Pro Max, why not just use the Pro Max? Well, because you get iPad OS, which means you can do different things. Like I have more available to me. If I want to bring up another app while I'm looking at something, I can do that. I want to bring up Quick Note, I can do that. So I'm really pleased that they have brought the iPad mini back and made it modern, because it's a device I think that has a great history, a great set of use cases. Like, when we were talking at Apple last time, yeah, like pilots and doctors use them, but so do people reading their news in the morning. And like, it's great for that. It's always been great for that, but had started to get less great for that. Like, it was not so much a good iPad anymore. It really had just become like the product you use if you need an iPad that's really small. So you'll get the iPad mini, even though it's not modern and looks old, because you need the small iPad. But now that it's like fast and modern and looks great again, it, I think, more easily fits back into the buying choices for people. It's like, I
Yeah.
think that this is like currently the best iPad for like content consumption.
Well, and it's like, look, we've talked so much about the iPad Pro, and it replaces your laptop. It replaces your laptop, and it's always like, yeah, it gets close, but there's this edge case, or this or that, or whatever the case is. But I think the iPad Mini feels like a little bit more of a refresh of like, well, hang on a second, throw away the idea of using a keyboard and a trackpad and everything.
Yes, this is not even in the equation, right? Of like, this is going to replace your laptop. No, it's not that. It's just
a terrific tablet.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think it's the best one. Like, I think it's
Yeah.
just the right set of circumstances to allow for a very good content consumption device. It's like this iPad mini feels like, for right now, the perfect kind of device for what the iPad originally was introduced to be.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, I have very briefly poked around with one, and like, there's definitely a part of me which is like, is this just my like little portable device? Like, am I just like gonna forget the keyboard, forget the trackpad, just use this as like my super portable little, like, 5G enabled tablet? Maybe. I still like that 11-inch like we talked about last episode. But man, the mini, talk about a great upgrade. I have one question. I know we gotta hurry up. I've got one question for you. Do you miss the 120 hertz? Because that is one thing I've always noticed it more on the iPad than on the phone. Weirdly enough, especially now I've got them side by side.
Yeah, it feels like to me that the screen overall is not as high quality.
Yeah.
Where in theory it's the same screen as my iPad Pro, because I had the 11-inch iPad Pro. So like, if you look at Apple's specs page, it shares all the same specs except for ProMotion, but it feels like the screen just isn't as nice. It's perfectly fine, it's great, but like, it just doesn't feel as good, which I could imagine being the case, right? That like, it's a cheaper device, maybe it gets the screens that pass quality check but wouldn't go in the iPad Pro.
Interesting.
Or it might be that I'm missing ProMotion. I don't know. I feel like I don't notice ProMotion on the iPad in the same way that I do the iPhone. So maybe my brain
weird.
is kind of, like, honestly, I don't really feel like I notice it on the iPad. I think, over time, it's just become like, this is a part of what the iPad Pro screen is, but I don't feel like things are as smooth. I don't know why that is, as I feel on my iPhone. So yeah, I think the screen is perfectly fine for what it's used for. This episode is brought to you by Privacy.com. Privacy is a tool that makes it easy to manage your financial life online while keeping your most important information secure. Because by generating virtual card numbers, Privacy will mask your bank information so you never have to worry about giving it out to people that you don't know online. Right? So like, let's imagine you're going to somewhere, like maybe this happened to me today. I was on Instagram and I was advertised a meal kit, and I was like, that looks awesome. I want to buy that food. I want to cook that food, and it's going to be great. But I'd never seen this company before, and I didn't really know about them. And I went to their checkout page, and they didn't have the ability for me to use anything like Apple Pay or whatever. And if you're actually buying in Instagram, like, you never really have the option. You have to like put your card number in. And I'm like, I don't know this company. But with Privacy, you don't have to worry about any of that, because you could just create, and it can just create my own virtual card number, put it in. It can be locked to that merchant. And if there was ever an issue, I can just cut them off. They can't charge me more than I want. If there was a data breach, then I'm not going to have my card information stolen, because it was just a card number that I created just for that instance. Super awesome. It lets you take back control of your payments. You can decide who can charge a card, how much, and how often. You can close those cards at any time. This means you're never going to be billed twice. You're never going to be upgraded to a service without your consent with a software provider you might pay for. Super awesome. I use and love 1Password, and Privacy is partnered with 1Password, so you can create, use, and save privacy cards directly within your 1Password dashboard. All of the virtual cards created in 1Password have the same features as your other privacy cards, so you can still set spending limits, create single-use or merchant lock cards whenever you want. Super easy, and it's all saved in there, so if you use that, it's greatly integrated. Go to privacy.com/testdrivers and sign up for an account today. New customers automatically get $5 to spend on your first purchase. That's free money, right? That's $5 that is yours. Go to privacy.com/testdrivers and sign up now. Our thanks to Privacy for their support of this show and Relay FM. Microsoft. Let's talk about what our good buddy Panos Panay's been up to, friend of the show.
He's been in the lab putting in
he's been deep in that lab. Panos, I thought you were too busy with your new job. Boy, oh boy. So Surface event a week or so ago, they announced a bunch of products, like a new Surface Pro 8, has a larger screen than Thunderbolt 4. Looks great for people that are in the Surface crew. But there's two products we want to talk about, right? Duo 2, Surface Laptop Studio.
Oh, yeah.
So what's going on with the Duo 2? Because I know you've seen these, right? You had a little hands-on time with these.
Yes. So to preface, I had a brief amount of hands-on time.
Okay.
I had an hour to kind of get a little, sort of information on them and to go play with all of them, including not only the new Surface Go, there's the Surface Pro, the Surface Laptop Studio, which I've definitely messed the name up like 17 times, and the Duo 2 as well as the new pen.
I call the Surface Laptop Studio about 4 different things, and I don't know what. Surface Book Studio, Surface Book Laptop Pro. Like I don't know what it is, but I think it's because they've taken 2 products that they make and they've created a name out the middle of them, and I don't know if it's the name I would have chosen.
So, I mean, how could you be confused with the company who sells you the Surface Laptop, the Surface Laptop Go, the Surface Go, the Surface Studio Book?
Do they still make a Surface Book? That's gone now, I think, the Surface Book.
Yeah, the 2-in-1 thing that like actually detached with like a tablet. Yes, that is still around, but the idea, I think, is that the Surface Laptop Studio is generally speaking going to replace that. Yeah.
I don't know why, Austin, they didn't call this the Surface Book Studio, because that's what I keep thinking it's called. And I'm not sure. Maybe because, like, it isn't technically the same kind of product as the Surface Book, right? Because it was it was a Surface and a laptop. Although they called this, so is it anyway. I don't know, man.
It's like the naming scheme is they just put in like, Surface, Laptop, Studio Go. They like sort of mix around in a hat. They pull out 2 or 3 of them. They go, okay, here you go. This is the name. So let's talk about Duo first, because I have a lot of thoughts on the Studio. So I think we got a special place in our hearts for the Duo. We've talked about it many times in the past episodes. And the first device was a flawed but charming little device, right? The dual screen form factor, the thinness of that first Duo was incredible, right? Like it really felt like a very different approach to, the Z Flip or the Fold or anything like that. Like it was a very different way of approaching things. However, there were some major drawbacks to that device, right? And a lot of those drawbacks have been solved by the Duo 2. So there's a bunch of stuff that, you can go down the spec list. It's no longer like what was like an 855. Like it was outdated from the second it came out. It now has the most recent Snapdragon 888 processor. It has not only like 8 gigs of RAM, but it also has 5G, millimeter wave, the whole thing, right? So spec-wise, this is now what you would expect at a $1,400, $1,500 phone, which is still expensive. But the other things, though, that are sort of a bigger upgrade would be in the cameras, which the last model, of course, had a single, basically front-facing camera that you could just flip around and use. It was terrible. It just was not good at all, right? This time, you now have a triple camera rear setup. Now, I will say, when we first saw this, and we talked about it a little while ago, I was apprehensive about the camera bump because it is a large bump. And considering that the Duo is so thin, I mean, I don't know that I don't have the exact spec in front of me, but like when you have the Duo folded, it's hardly any thicker than a standard smartphone, right? Like not like the Z Flip or the Z Fold, which are, the footprints are small, but the thickness is definitely there. The Duo is incredibly thin, but they did a nice thing with this. So when you go to open up the phone and you want to like just completely close it, like with I guess the camera facing inward. Wait, actually, no, there's too many ways to move this thing. Like if you want to like basically unfold it and have the camera sort of like hidden, there's actually a little magnet and a chamfered edge. So it actually kind of like claps together as you go to open the phone if you just want to use one screen or the other.
So if you were opening it and flipping one of the screens round to the back, they've built it so it kind of sits nicely.
Yes, because
Okay.
with the last Duo, it was flat. So you would just open it and it would just, you could completely close both sides
Right.
and it would just kind of sit together.
But now the hinge kind of has a built-in gap that it creates on the back, right?
Yes.
So it's not like squeezing weirdly, I guess.
Yeah, the magnet is really nice. It kind of brings you the last like 5% of the way. And what's actually really nice is that even though, it's obviously not flat anymore, if you're going to use like the pen or something, you set it down, it actually gives you a slight tilted angle on the display, which actually works really well. I was very pleasantly surprised with how that feels. They also have this kind of like case thing that you can put on that you can also use for the pen, which now will be able to be charged via the Duo. Although the reverse wireless charging only works when you have the pen and the case together. It won't work by itself. But essentially, you can put that on. It will help kind of cover up the camera bump a little bit.
I think that's fine. Because the pen, I don't think everyone's going to use anyway.
Yeah. So that's one thing, right? But there are other things that are really nice. So not only are the displays slightly larger, they're also 90 hertz this year, both of them, which I think is a terrific upgrade. And I mean, we've talked about this lots of times. In fact, we talked about it in this episode. Going from like 60 to 120 hertz is a big difference. But I would argue going from 60 to 90 is, for most people, the vast majority of that kind of range, right?
Just above 60. You just got to get above 60,
yes.
right? Like that's the key. Yeah.
Like if you put a 90 and 120 hertz display in front of most people, they're not going to see a huge difference. Going up to that 90 makes a big difference, especially because you got those two large displays. But on top of that, they're now curved, but they're curved inward. So again, this is really hard to describe in a podcast. You kind of have to look at it or really kind of feel it to understand. But essentially, if you have the phone unfolded in front of you, so you have your left screen and your right screen, where the two screens meet, they're folded on that side. There's a couple of advantages here. One of which is if you're moving your finger from one to the other, now you have like a little bit of like a curved dip where they kind of meet, which feels nice. But also when you have the phone closed, that curved edge is now visible through the backside, like where like the spine of it is.
This part is genius.
Yes. And you can essentially get like notifications, alarms, phone calls. It's a very small strip, mind you, very, very small. But it is a nice little feature where you don't have to open it up.
But it's serving the same purpose, by and large, as like cover displays on, say, the Z Flip or something.
Yeah. I mean, you can't use it for like, I guess, a camera viewfinder. So it's not quite as useful and you can't interact with it. You can't actually touch it. It's, like I said, like you look at it in photos, it looks decent. When you look at it in person, it is really small. Like you have to actually kind of look for it. Like it almost seems like one of those things where they designed it like this and they go, oh, wait a minute, you can kind of see a few pixels there. Why don't we like put something? But it's still a nice feature. But I think the more important thing is the fact that it feels nice and smooth, right? Like when you're scrolling between those two screens, especially when you have them like folded open where you're only using one screen or the other and it's kind of wrapped around the back, it just feels really nice to wrap your finger around it.
And I just think it's very clever. I just think it's like a nice little detail of giving you that like notification thing. Everyone's going to know how many Teams messages they have. I love that Teams is broken out into its own little thing. I just think it's smart. And it's using Snapdragon 888, 8 gigabytes of RAM and NFC. Even if the cameras aren't that great on the outside, it's better than no cameras, right?
And I will say they're not that great. I mean,
I wasn't expecting it though, right? Like I'm expecting kind of like middle of the road would be what I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, again, I had probably a grand total of 10 minutes to actually play with the Duo 2 before I moved on to the other devices. The cameras are certainly, far better than they used to be. And you've got, the ultra wide, the standard, and the telephoto. I think it's a 2x telephoto. But the image quality looked fine. Nowhere near, even like a Z Flip or something. Like, certainly it was not running final software. And we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah.
Well, no, tell me about that.
So it's running Android 11.
Problem, right?
Mm-hmm. So I don't want to spoil anything. We may have a little bit of a deeper dive on this on a future episode. I got to chat and talk with some people about some of the things that go on behind the scenes about how the Duo 2 is created, specifically on the software side. So stay tuned for that.
Okay.
But It's still a little janky. They've done some improvements. So now, if you're looking at the phone, like you have both screens open, the right screen is the dominant display. So it has now your speakerphone and everything. But also, when you go to fold the phone and use it, it by default sets it to that display. And you actually have to double tap the other screen to turn that one on, which is nice. And they still have all like their multitasking stuff where you can like swipe apps up and then like kind of flick them left or right or whatever. Some apps like TikTok now support the dual screen layout. So you can be watching TikTok on one side and like scrolling through like the Discover page or whatever on the other side.
It feels like a lot.
Nice. Yeah.
Double TikTok? Look, that seems like a lot, man.
we got hit the talk, man. But look, it's still a little janky. Like it's still, when I was playing with it, it still doesn't feel right. It still feels like sometimes you have to do gestures a couple of times. It still needs some work. And I know that there's certainly a learning curve with the Duo that's not there for most other devices. But this is slightly better. I still think there's a ways to go based on, again, my limited time with an early device. But what I saw didn't operate like on the software side in a fundamentally very different way than the previous version.
Well, we're still about a month away from it coming out, right? Or best part of a month away. I think it's like end of October.
Yeah.
So I just have my fingers crossed because that was the biggest issue last time, I think, ultimately, was everyone was really impressed by the hardware. And even the hardware's faults you could maybe look over, but the software experience wasn't good enough. I really hope that they've taken that to heart, but...
It's better, and it's certainly, you're right. There's still time between now and then, but yeah, I'm not filled with confidence that it's magically way better. I think it's going to be one of those things where it is going to be, a multiple year project to really kind of continue to refine and build out that sort of very custom build of Android. And to be fair, there are certainly rumors that there are updated sort of dual screen and foldable sort of deep functions inside of Android coming soon. So I'd like to think that will help so that, Microsoft and Samsung, they don't always have to like
adopt it.
Well, yeah.
Right? Like, it can be in, just because it's in Android, Microsoft have to put it in their version or the version they're going to put on their device, right? Like that's the other issue.
Yeah. But the hardware, I will say for sure, significantly better. Very little I can complain about now. Like all of the main issues have been sort of addressed. I'm just waiting to really kind of spend more time with that software. But yeah, the Duo was nice. Did you see well, actually, no, I don't even have to ask this because you were like frantically slacking me during the event of like, oh my God, it's the Surface Laptop Studio.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch all of the event. I watched some of it after, but this part I did catch live. And it reminded me of the Duo because it's very similar. I was recording a show because Microsoft do their events at a good time, but usually it's like always when I'm recording. And I was able to tune in to see the Laptop Studio get unveiled. Ooh. This is a laptop with like a hinge system in it. So
you know what's great about all these surfaces? They're so hard to describe.
Yeah, they really are. But that's cool though, because like I said something. I mean, I think Microsoft are making some of the most exciting hardware and technology right now. Like the designs that they pull out, and the fact that we can't explain it to you in terms that you have seen before is what makes that apparent. We can't say to you, "Oh, this is just like this." Because most of their designs are pretty unique in certain ways. But like this is a laptop that opens and closes like a laptop. But then you can also pull kind of the screen away from the main body and angle it to be either what they call stage mode, where you're basically bringing the screen right the way forward. So it's like, I don't know, nice for watching videos or whatever, doing presentations because it's right in front of you. And then also studio mode where you squish it all the way down. So the screen is now flat to the body like a tablet and you could use a pen on it or whatever.
I would highly recommend for anyone who is listening right now to take a look at some photos or videos of this thing.
Yeah.
I will have a video up on it at some point in the future. But it is very unique, right? But what's nice about it is that you obviously have the touchscreen. You have, those flexible modes. But unlike a lot of sort of like 2-in-1s or whatever, if you didn't want to use any of these modes, you would never know that they're there, because essentially it's like sort of, if you look at that laptop display, about halfway down, there's a secondary hinge, which is how it kind of can pop out from the main body. You can kind of rotate it back and forth, but it is so thin and so well engineered that you don't need to use it. Like, you would never have any sort of downside. Whereas, like, I feel like on a lot of like sort of 201s and stuff, the hinges don't feel great. They have to move like the power button to the side of the chassis. There's a bunch of stuff. This feels like the right way to do something like this, in a way which is legitimately useful, but also it completely gets out of your way and there's no compromise if you're not, rotating in a bunch of different sort of dimensions. It's also a 120 hertz display, which is, I guess, the theme of this episode. Gotta go fast. 120 hertz display. Not exactly like this is a revolution on Windows, which has supported it since roughly the dawn of time. However, it's nice to see 120 hertz on a non-gaming device, because while, yes, this does have a dedicated GPU option, a 3050 Ti, which can do some gaming, but like, this is very much more of like a MacBook Pro competitor that you could play some games on. But it's nice to see that 120 hertz, which I feel like the bigger the screen gets, the more it really becomes like very obviously just smoother, especially with some of the new animations that are available in Windows 11.
What do you think about the specs? So the good thing, I guess, is you can go up to an RTX 3050 Ti for graphics. And it's probably why it has that like interesting base to it, where it's like staged and it's got like a bunch of cooling going on. But you can choose from an 11th gen core i5 or i7 from Intel for your CPU. What do you think of that?
I think it's fine. I mean, certainly we've seen in like sort of Surface devices before that, they're the custom Surface Edition AMD processors, and obviously they've got like the Microsoft SQ1 and SQ2, which is just a modified Qualcomm chip. But it, to me, seems like Microsoft are playing everyone, right? Like, it's like, we'll use Intel and AMD and all our wonderful partners, and it's almost like they can't pick a favorite child.
Yes, well, because they actually can't, right? It's
yes,
bad
that is
enough,
a true statement,
quote unquote, bad enough that they do this anyway, right? For these for all the companies that they work with.
Look, I will say 11th gen like i5s and i7s, there's nothing I can really complain about. The graphics are solid. The CPU performance is good. You're not going to have the 8-core design that you would have if this was Ryzen, which I guess would be the main downside for a device which is meant to be a little bit more of like a professional kind of thing. You're not going to have the M1 performance or necessarily, the rendering capability of a Ryzen 7 or something. That being said, though, I think it's fine. The 3050 Ti is totally fine. I actually am really a big fan of the way that they've sort of packaged this, because if you look at it from most angles, it is very MacBook-like, So it's a 14-inch display, but, it's very, very thin bezels and whatnot. It has a nice display, nice camera with some stuff that's actually a little bit kind of M1 inspired, where like, it'll detect your face, and it'll help kind of auto expose for that. Like, there's a little bit of sort of smarts going on there, but it's got this little shelf, which again, hard to describe, but essentially I would say if you go around the front three edges, right? So the front, the left, and the right, there is maybe a 10 millimeter sort of gap between the base and the actual edge, where you have a couple of Thunderbolt ports as well as your headphone jack. And what that is not only it's a little shelf underneath the trackpad where you can drop the pen, which, to be fair, the pen is better this year. It's got a little bit of like haptic feedback, which, like, as you sort of go over lines and whatnot, it's kind of cool. The trackpad is also straight up MacBook-like, so it's no longer the actual diving board mechanism. It is a like sort of the virtual click.
Yeah, so fake click, haptic engine dealio.
Yeah, it's very similar. I would say it feels close enough that you're not going to really notice the difference, but now you can kind of click on any sort of side of it, and there's a fairly convincing kind of a little bit of like haptic feedback. But that little shelf that goes around means that not only does the laptop feel thinner when you're holding it, but it enables a ton more cooling, which helps. Like, people are like, oh, it's the chunky, huge, super thick device. It's not that thick. And especially when you consider that all the cooling is kind of done away from the keyboard deck and below, I think it's a really clever move, because we've seen other companies like Asus do things like their Ergo Lift design, which is when you open up the actual display, it kind of like separates the bottom of the laptop and lifts the keyboard deck, which is great right up until the point you're like using it on your lap or something, and now it's like not super solid. The laptop studio, to me, is absolutely that, combined with Windows 11. I'm going to daily drive that for a bit. I'm very excited for that hardware. I still love the M1 MacBook. I mean, this hardware is still incredible, but this feels like my opportunity to dip into not only Windows 11, but also the laptop studio, because this hardware is just, like you said, it's just so fresh. It's just so exciting.